Hello, and I hope you're doing well. Today, I would like to represent my thoughts on clans for higher difficulties in Monster Train. Let us begin with the Hellhorned. Win condition? Get lots of multi-strike. Upgrade your cost-efficient spells to kill off the weak backline, then pummel the front line with your absurd attack values. Let's take a quick look at the Hellhorn's unique mechanics. Rage is a fine mechanic that increases your attack by 2 for every point of rage you have currently, but you lose a point of rage every turn. You would need Trample or Multi-Strike to really shine, as having a huge attack that does not overflow to back ranks isn't very desirable. Armor increases your HP for every point of armor you have, but it can't be healed back once it's gone. Armor is usually more cost efficient to gain than healing and triggers revenge effects unlike damage immunity, making it a solid boost to frontliners regardless of your frontline of choice. For the Hellhorn champion, pretty much every single build is good. You will eventually want to splash for multi-strike. The Wrathful version is the least desirable as of the writing of this guide, but it's mostly a numbers problem. The recent buff might have increased his desirability already, and honestly, even that version is pretty good if you can get spikes on it from the Evoker. So let's start with the common cards of the Hellhorn. Vent is a very versatile card, and it is incredibly cost efficient considering the damage it can do. Remains useful until the very end game, as clearing the backline is always relevant. A great reason to consider splashing Hellhorned. Fortify is a spell that doesn't cost any mana, making it a very good card. 20 armor before potential upgrades is stellar, but for the best performance you would want extra card draw or creatures with incant ability. Fledgling Imp. Not bad as far as imps go. A rage outlet that takes a hit for you. You could do way worse. Hidden Passage. This may be a hot take, but I don't really like ascending or descending abilities, because usually they cost a lot for what they do, and when they end up in your hand, you might not even need them. They are probably better once upgraded with Frozen though. Hornbreak. A fine spell that ignores any armor or damage immunity gimmicks your opponents might have. The downer is, those types of enemies aren't very common at all, and those that have armor are way out of this card's kill range health-wise. So you probably wouldn't end up picking this one. Molting Imp. I think he's the best imp. And I think I summarized the imp situation fairly well when I say this one's the best imp, and I just never end up picking him at all. Torch is in the race for the best starting card. A very versatile, targeted, low-cost damage spell that hunts backliners and collectors early game and keeps doing that once upgraded till the end game. Welder Helper is actually a passable frontliner considering his effective 21 health and taking up only 1 capacity. Ritual of Battle is a rage outlet to get you started. However, the cost is unreasonably high and the effect is negligible even though it was recently buffed. Pick one if you think you'll need it, but you need to lower the cost. With commons out of the way, let's take a look at the uncommon cards. Imp in a Box. Maybe there are some combos with it, but imps aren't good enough to just be okay with getting 2 random imps. Important Work. This one's not bad in an imp heavy build, makes imps actually do something. But in longer battles you will run out of imps unless you have remnant allies. Rage Serum is efficient as a base card unlike Ritual of Battle. It's one of the few instances where removing the consume to increase the cost by 1 is preferred. Horned Warrior. This guy is your main workhorse and one of the most useful creatures in the game in my opinion. A very good cost to attack ratio. Get multi-strike on him and he will do work for you. Ideally, you want some health on him as the endgame has some area of effect damage type enemies. But you probably can just armor him through that at that point. Impish Scholar deals no damage, has no health. For this card to do work, you would need a single consumable card which has been used previously in the fight, which you will need again. That's very inconvenient to try and get value out of. Impressive is a very cost-efficient card. As much as I dislike imps, this card makes that strategy at least bearable. March of Shields is acceptable after upgrades. You can also target enemy backliners to get them to the front. Pyre Chomper is good if you need those 4 embers, but ideally your deck runs fine on the default amount of ember you have. He's a consideration if you've got a lot of X cost spells, but they're not all that common. Railbeater would have been better if encounters always presented you with a tanky frontline / squishy backline lineup queue, but they don't. However, his knockback effect is very valuable if you're playing a Hellhorned primary, where slay triggers are a very important part of a winning combat. Steelworker works well as a frontline in most builds. He will crumble to continuous attacks, so it's best to keep him as a secondary frontline in case something gets through your first. Alpha Fiend looks a lot better than it actually is. You need lots and lots of striking to do to catch up to his peers, who honestly is mostly the Horned Warrior. Branding Right shows promise as it's versatile. You can just as easily use it as a damage spell. Note that augmenting the magic damage increases its damage part, but not the armor given. Enflame is a bit expensive, but definitely competitive. Pick it only if you think you can upgrade it to lower its cost soon. Tiresome Climb. 2 costs very high, but Dazed is an excellent debuff to place on your enemies. Pick it if you feel like you need it. Battering Ram turns your armor into damage. The problem is the cost is just too high, so you probably won't be able to keep supplying the armor. I'm not gonna deny it's fun though. Inferno. If you decide to pick this one, you are aiming to leave the first level open to cast this every single turn after upgrading Inferno with holdover and reduced cost. And with that, let's take a look at the rares now. Demon Fiend is incredibly costly. I'm not even sure it's worth it, as it's too bulky for a damage dealer and is too squishy for a frontliner. Spike of the Hellhorned. Spikes aren't very good in monster trade for the most part. This one isn't an exception. Dark Deal is an excellent way to get rage on your creatures. Since Dark Deal's arguably the best outlet you can have, you would want a low card deck to get the most out of it. or alternatively you can just upgrade it with holdover. Ally of the Ancients is a great amount of armor for almost no cost, making it a great pick in most runs. Deranged Brute. His stats aren't very good, but if you want to get the most out of him, you need extra capacity several times. He wasn't very good before, but he was buffed recently, so I expect him to be easier to leverage into a winning position. Impalate. You would need imps in your deck for this card to have any noticeable impacts, and you most likely won't. Transcend Imp. There are actually very few summon effects in the game besides imps. Tombs from Remnant has some high impact ones. Last Stand. You are heavy in rage and armor mechanics if you're deep into Hellhorned anyways, making this one a good pick. Reinforce is great for the same reason as Last Stand. Multiplication effects are very difficult to balance as they will throw the power curve all over the place, so that's the reason for both of their exorbitant costs. But do you really need all that gold in your coffers anyways? Upgrade your rares. One Horn's Tome. Terrible cost aside, this is one of the best cards in the game. Upgrade it to 3 cost and give it to the biggest badass you can find. Except now you're fragile. Fragile status effect was added in the last patch and it means you die if you take any damage. Armor does prevent it. Still very good. Consumer of Crowns. For all you imp lovers out there, I hope you get this guy on every impful run you have. Let's take a look at the relics now. Ashes of the Fallen. So, most summon effects in the game are tied to imps. Their effects actually become excellent when doubled. Collection of Tales. A beast of a relic. With Hellhorn's vast use of rage mechanics, you would very rarely skip this one. Consumed Crown. Okay, when you got your front line and back line set up, this relic only works in your favor. Gurg's Goad. Multi-strike for all your demon units for free. An unbelievably good relic. And one of the best in the game. Impsicle. Might work since they're free and being creatures you won't worry about drawing them again. But you'll have to cast them so they're not going into your deck. Railhammer worth its weight. +4 armor each time it's applied means it's now very easy to stack armor to absurd levels. Resonant Shard. Rage adds an additional +1 attack per stack. This is another great relic. Gets you 3 attacks for each point of rage you have. Very hard to argue against. Scorched Steel. Nice as a standalone, excellent in a Remnant deck with investment into Reform mechanic, as each returned creature will have armor again, letting them punch way above their weight. Scorching Restraints. Same with Scorched Steel, but this one's also good to give you a rage kickstart in your Hellhorned heavy deck. The Unbroken Horde looks better than it is, as you usually end up using all your Ember every turn in the game. With that, we have come to the conclusion. Picking Hellhorned will grant you access to a Rage 7 minor upgrade at Merchant of Steel. It's not as good as +10 attack for the same cost if you don't have Rage or Reform support, but it's not far behind. As a primary, Hellhorned has the most well-balanced choices out of any Covenant. Their creatures are good, their spells are good, their mechanics make sense, Imps are kinda gimmicky, but you don't really have to go too deep into them. The champion might not tank well, but he deals damage well, and as a clan, Hellhorned offers the best and easiest to apply targeted damage and AoE. However, they don't draw cards or frontline very well, so you would benefit from an ally that has access to either of those. Thank you for listening to my ramblings about the Hellhorned Covenant. Please consider subscribing, and I will be back with the Awoken Covenant guide soon. Take care and good day.